In an age of the self-made person, in an age of self-absorption, in an age of the anxious and isolated self, there is a voice of one who is seeking us. What sort of perception do you have of yourself? So many things depend on the answer to that question. Physical and mental health, self-identity, goals in life, overall happiness, etc., etc. Self-perception is at the heart of many of the challenges facing us in the 21st century. If, for example, we feel like we have meaning and purpose and agency, we will live our lives very differently than if we feel like cogs in a big machine, just working the hours until retirement, working for the man. How we perceive our lives is vital for living meaningfully. This is, of course, the age of selfies, where in a world of online connectivity, we seek to shore up our worth by the number of likes we receive. On the one hand, we want to be autonomous, self-actualizing individuals, but in allowing our screens to give us a sense of who we are, we discover the anxieties of the age: isolation, loneliness, and sometimes even self-loathing. And if that wasn't enough, there's a huge swathe of people who have been victims of trauma, often resulting in poor self-worth, whether it's the Me Too victims, the victims of institutional abuse, or PTSD sufferers from various wars. Often such experiences lead to scripts and self-beliefs that undermine healthy identity. For example, victims of abuse or violence can cement in the precognitive parts of their brains how unworthy and how unlovable they are. Atheistic philosophies don't seem to help much, because if we are merely a few billion atoms thrown together by chance and time, what significance do our lives have within a vast and empty universe? I've looked at the various attempts by atheists to frame meaning with that as a backdrop, and in all honesty, it rings hollow. Seeking to construct a meaningful belief system out of apparently random processes leaves more questions and anxieties than it attempts to solve. And so some turn to religion, but the church hasn't always helped either. If I can riff on something theologian Tom Wright once said, to hear some Christians describe the good news, it's as though God so hated the world that he tortured to death his own child, and all of it was all your fault. I was talking to someone last week who described how she was trying to reshape the image of God given to her from childhood into an image that was closer to the one presented by Jesus. She realized in her senior years how distorted her view of herself was because of how she viewed God. Maybe the church has given you more bad news than good news about your identity, either by what is said from the front or what is implied, and sometimes by how individuals in leadership have behaved directly towards you. So with this array of assaults that can attack us from all sides and from within, and sometimes from those who are meant to help, it's no wonder we are in mental and emotional health crises. So is there a way to begin to recover a sense of being made in the image of our Creator? Is there a way to go beyond our tendencies for selfishness and self-absorption into an image that is healthy, an image of ourself, an image that is whole? This is Dchurched.com. My name's Jools. Welcome. For Christians, human worth is rooted not intrinsically within us or in a set of values that we create on the outside, but rather in relation to the Maker. And no amount of telling ourselves we are the most important thing in the universe can actually cure that inner ache to be something more. For followers of Jesus, I would suggest that it's as we discover the God in whose image we are made that we find our place in life. We are not the most important thing. God is. It is not by getting more likes on Facebook that we shore up our sense of self, but rather as we relate to the one who is infinitely loving, we discover our true worth. Let me describe it through a story that Jesus himself told. This is the story of the lost coin. Suppose a woman has 10 silver coins and loses one. Won't she light a lamp and sweep the entire house and search carefully until she finds it? When she finds it, she would call in all her friends and her neighbors and say, "Rejoice with me because I have found my lost coin." In the same way, there is joy in the presence of God's angels when even one sinner repents. Now, the context of this is that Jesus is justifying to the religious leaders of his day his own ministry. His ministry of mixing with the so-called sinners and the deplorables, as it were, and saying that the vulnerable and the broken are people God loves, and that Jesus in his ministry is loving too. This story is sandwiched between two others in that same kind of context. The first of them is the lost shepherd, where the shepherd finds his sheep and calls upon his friends to rejoice with him at the discovery. One early Arabic translation of this word friends is actually identical to the Aramaic word for associates or friends, the same word in Aramaic that was used to describe the Pharisees. So the shepherd is calling on his friends or associates to celebrate that this valuable and cherished animal is found. This is a clear dig at the religious leaders of Jesus' day. They ought to be celebrating at the lost and the broken coming in. Likewise, the parable of the two prodigal sons that follows the lost coin story has the father, having sought to repair the damage to the younger son's sense of self-worth by giving a gift of the robe and the ring and the shoes and having the party, is effectively saying to the older son, "I have re-established this relationship with your brother. Value him the way I do, and come and join in with us in the celebration." Jesus is thus calling the religious people of his day to recognize that worth comes in relation to him and his ministry. His ministry to the outcasts and those rejected by the religious establishment. It is there because he longs for all humans to find and enjoy that sense of worth. The sheep is valuable as a commodity to the shepherd. The sons are valuable to a father who loves them despite their failings. And so both of those stories, while also being multi-layered in what they say, do have as part of a cluster of ideas the concept of where worth comes from. So what distinguishes this story of the lost coin from those two stories either side of it? Well, I think it adds to the multi-dimensional picture of human worth that Jesus paints. The answer assumes that the coin is part of the household budget and goes like this. The sheep in the first parable could come back injured or with damaged wool and be of less use to the shepherd. The younger son in the third parable comes back emotionally scarred, guilty and shamed by his experience. But the coin's value, however, is undiminished by the dirt and the dust found on the floor of a peasant home. Its worth remains the same and only needs to be in the hands of the woman for it to be utilized to its full potential. Coins would of course be stamped with the image of the divine Caesar. Their value comes not through their intrinsic worth. Most coins were made mainly of low quality silver and metal. No, their value came from the stamp of divinity on them and when they were in the hands of one who could use them. No amount of dirt on the ground could change that. Their worth is being in the hands of one who will make use of them. Thus, in these three stories, Jesus paints a multifaceted picture of the worth of humans to God. However, it is in the story of the lost coin that we gain a distinct picture of our worth to God. This says that no matter what has happened to people or how damaged we perceive ourselves or others to be, it is in relation to the Creator that we find our worth, not in finding our own identity by some scheme that we build in our own heads, but in relation to the Creator. And no amount of grime devalues us. Whatever people have said to us or about us, we are still stamped with the divine image. It is through being in the hands of Jesus, it is through embracing him as the center of life that we discover our true worth, our true identity, our true self. Like the woman in the story, Jesus is seeking and wants to find us. When he finds us, he may dust us off a bit, but it's being found by him that gives us value. In an age of the self-made person, in an age of self-absorption, in an age of the anxious and isolated self, there is a voice of one who is seeking us, one who wants to hold us, to carry us, to dust us off and make us clean so that we, together with other coins, can be useful. Our worth is not intrinsic. We are just, as the atheists often say, just a bunch of atoms, cells, water, carbon, and a few other bits and pieces. Our worth, though, is in becoming images of the Divine One. Our worth is being held in His hands. Thanks for listening. My name's Jools. This is Dchurched.com.